Welcome to My Vertical Obsession. I'm your host, Meghan, and today we are talking about Bound to the Rebel Wolf on ReelShort. It stars Neela Jolie as Maeve Thornvale and Tyler Johnson Ellis as Saxon Blackmore. And the synopsis for this is, their families slaughtered each other and they're sworn to hate one another, but the pull between them cannot be denied. Maeve, the Alpha Princess, enters Leporium, determined to survive the kingdom's brutal war college. What she doesn't expect is a fated bond with Saxon Blackmore, the most powerful wolf there, and her enemy. Now, the one wolf she shouldn't want might be the only one who can save her. And I have to say that I had so much fun breaking this series down and talking about it. This one was so much fun. So, going over the characters, we have Maeve, grew up being taught that the Blackmore were traitors and had killed her mother, that when given the chance they would kill again, that she had to be strong to get revenge for her mother's death, only she was a healer and took an oath to do no harm. She did not want this violence she was forced into. Was her dad who wanted this. She just wanted to make it through the college and prove she was strong. She also believed that the Blackmore children were given a chance to be better and thought that was possible, not knowing how manipulated she was by the people she cared about most. She wanted to prove herself worthy, and they wanted to keep the power and control they had. She wanted to believe her father wouldn't lie to her, but at the same time knew if he found out about her gift, he'd use it as a weapon. Her father tried to mold her into what he wanted, but it was her mother that prevented that kept her grounded and was able to be the kind person that she was. So the gift that Maeve had was that she actually could heal people. So she wasn't just simply another healer that helped or bandaged wounds and created antidotes and things like that, but she actually had the power to fully heal wounds. So like when she got hurt after being a fight, she was able to heal the broken ribs she was given so that they were no longer broken. And she knew that if her father found out about this, he would use that to his advantage, which is one of the things too, is that even though she knew from what her father told her that the Blackmores were responsible for her mother's death and were traitors, and she wanted to believe her father that he wouldn't lie to her, she also knew deep down that he would use her as a weapon, so he wasn't all good that she wanted or tried to believe. So she knew there was something bad in him. And as for Saxon, he knew things were not what they seemed and just trying to survive. Also keep his fellow family and pack members alive. He figured out what the War College is all about and is determined to change it this year. With the help of Kayla, he wanted to bring down King Ellis Thornvale and General Zion once and for all. He believes that he needs to bring down Maeve too, but that was until they were bonded. Then he knew he had to show her the truth about the past. He became the strongest wolf so he could defeat his enemies and avenge his father, to be able to show everyone that his father wasn't the traitor he was said to be. He wanted to preserve the Blackmore name and bring down the corruption. While he knew Maeve was a Thornvale, he never seemed to really want her dead, even before they were bonded. He seemed more like he wanted to open her eyes to the truth and hope she'd help them. As the strongest wolf, he could have killed her many times, but never did. Instead, tried to protect her from the War College. So even before he knew she was a Thornvale, and even after he knew, he still tried to tell her to leave the college, that this wasn't where she was supposed to be. Mostly, I think, because she was a healer, so he didn't want to see her part of this, but also he knew what this college was. It was just a way to take out the rest of the Blackmores. So he was trying to get her to leave the War College and go back to the Healers College. And I really kind of love that about Saxon, is that even though it was this notion that he wanted to kill her, he had many opportunities to try and still protected her. And this was even before they found out that they were bonded. And this is where I had the most fun breaking this down, because I said how this story is a modern day telling of Romeo and Juliet. Families torn apart and said to hate each other. Maeve and Saxon bond together and fall for each other, only their families would never allow it. So instead of the two lovers father's dying, like in Romeo and Juliet, they're able to fight against the odds to be together. Maeve has been told lies by her father and has believed them because why would her father lie to her? She still knew there was still a part of him that he couldn't be trusted if he knew about her powers. He would use them as a weapon. As I had mentioned before, she knew that part of him that he would exploit her powers, which she knew was not something good. And knowing that, I think, helped Maeve open to the idea that maybe Saxon might be telling the truth when he tells her what King Thornvale has really done. While the bond between the two helped as well since it connects the two together, I believe there was a part of Maeve who saw the monster her father was becoming. After all, he wanted her to kill Saxon, but she never really saw him as a threat or as someone dangerous. He had told her multiple times to kill Saxon, but she never did. And she had mentioned that she had an oath as a healer to do no harm, so that also kind of stopped her from killing him as well. But it was more that she never saw him as the villain. Yes, she was told that he was the villain, but seeing him at the War College and seeing all he had done, she never really saw him as the villain. And when a note from her mother proved all Saxon was saying and that she was starting to see was the truth, she knew she had to help stop her father. When her father used his power and trick on Maeve, it was the bond to Saxon that saved her, for it was what broke the spell and allowed Maeve to put a stop to her father's reign once and for all. And in the end, truth and justice prevailed. Because her father had this mind controlling trick, which is what Saxon had said the king had used on his father to make his father the traitor, and that was the reason why he ended up killing Saxon's father and most of the Blackmore pack. And it was called Dominion, I think it was the mind controlling trick, and Saxon kept trying to tell Maeve that this is what he did, that her father did. He had used this, and Saxon's father and Maeve's mother were trying to stop Maeve's father. They were working together and they were trying to stop Maeve's father, but the king found out and killed them both, but just blamed the Blackmores for the death of Maeve's mother. So that way he could get Maeve to kill Saxon and the rest of the Blackmores. When she grew up, he wanted her to fight and exact revenge. So one of the things that I kind of, not questioned, but one of the things that I had put down was when it came to Rory Zion, who was General Zion's son and Maeve's childhood friend. He had stuck by her. He also tried to protect her while they were at War College, but he also ended up trying to kill Saxon, and then it was an arranged marriage between her and Maeve at the end. But one of the things that I truly tried to believe was Rory was not bad. At least he wasn't fully bad. I wanted to try and believe that because how I saw it was I didn't see him corrupt like his mother, but blindsided by the love for Maeve. Well, he did try to kill Saxon, but it felt more as a way to protect Maeve than to be ruthless. He too believed the lies that were told to him about the Blackmores, and I believe his mother manipulated him a bit more since she stood by King Ellis's side. Since he was a warrior like Saxon and not a healer, was raised to destroy the Blackmore wolves. I still think there was a part of him that felt that there was something not right. He just wanted to be with Maeve, and following orders would do that. That is why his mother went to attack Maeve after she stopped her father. He jumped in to save her. He would die for Maeve. He was misguided by how much he wanted to be her mate. And that's kind of how I saw Rory as a character, is that he was blinded by his love and wanting to be with Maeve, that he listened to his mother, he followed the orders of General Zion, because he knew if he didn't, he wouldn't be with Maeve, that he would never have this chance, and this arranged marriage that they had was never going to happen. But I never truly believed that he was as corrupt as his mother or as King Ellis Thornvale. I just saw him as kind of misguided and trying to do what he thought was right, just not realizing that his mother and the king were the ones in the wrong and that they were the ones manipulating everything. And speaking of Rory's mother, I was kind of curious about her, which as I kind of put it in my head, I realized that maybe she was just as corrupt as King Ellis. But I had this whole question of, was she always this power hungry? And that's that's why she was with King Ellis? Or did he use his power of dominion to control her? And I figured that was a no, because when you looked at how the dominion worked on Kayla and Maeve, they didn't talk, they didn't really say anything, they just kind of did what he told them. That's where my brain was like, oh, okay, so maybe that's not how it works. So maybe he didn't get her to his side that way. But then I was also like, well, he used it on Saxon's dad to get him to attack so he could kill him and then call him a traitor. But if you see how Maeve ends up attacking Saxon, it kind of makes sense as how he could use it on Saxon's dad. So it's kind of like going back and forth between this, but I still kind of landed on, yes, she was definitely power hungry and she wanted the same thing that he wanted. So, and that's what I had said. It's like, I have to think that she was just as power hungry and betrayed Maeve's mother, who was Luna of the Pack. And then I started questioning, did they plan this whole takeover together this whole time? Even with Maeve's mother there, still alive? It's like, were they working then? Or was it years after the fact? Like, when did they start working together? And when did they first start sleeping together? Because they were also sleeping together. Because, too, it's like, I had so many questions about this relationship between King Ellis and General Zion. I was just like, so when did this happen? How did this get started? It's all unimportant questions to the story, but it was still like roaming around in my head. And then the other thing when it came to General Zion and her father, because General Zion had mentioned how Maeve wasn't supposed to survive War College. So they had planned that Maeve to go to War College so it would get her killed. And General Zion had mentioned that she was carrying the true Thornvale heir. Because Maeve thought that she was sent to War College to get stronger, but in the truth, she was sent to be killed. King Ellis knew that there was still good in her from her mother. She was also a healer, so that she'd never be the ruthless warrior he wanted. He wanted power and to kill anyone who opposed him. He knew Maeve wouldn't do that. So Ellis and Zion figured that the Blackmore pack, Saxon, Kayla, and the other Blackmores, would kill her for them. It would also give them another reason to kill the remaining Blackmore wolves, because if they killed his daughter, he would have a legit reason to retaliate and be like, well, you killed my daughter, so you need to die. He just didn't know about Maeve's healing power. And that was the last thing that I wrote, is how there was a couple issues with this whole plan, is Maeve could heal herself, Saxon bond with Maeve and his saving her, and Rory's need to protect her. So those three things became an issue when it came to Maeve not surviving War College. But when you see it like that, you realize that he never cared for Maeve. She thought he wanted her to get stronger and avenge her mother's death, but in truth, he just wanted to get rid of her. And he thought that this would be the easiest way because he figured the remaining Blackmores would take their revenge out on her. So it's just so disturbing and horrible that he would do this. But he was just wanting the power so much that he'd rather have a warrior that would do his bidding for him, which they figured the new Thornvale heir would do. And then one of the other questions that I definitely had for this, which honestly unimportant, but it still kind of confused me a little bit, was that I didn't understand the titles. So you had Saxon, who was a commander, and Rory, a general. And I was like, was that from the college? Did the college give them those titles? And how long had they been at the college to receive those titles? Or was this something that was given to them in their packs and they just carried that into War College? Because, I mean, it seemed like Rory and Saxon and Kayla had been there for a while, whereas Maeve was just starting. So then I questioned, how long is War College actually supposed to be? Because it didn't seem like it was that long for Maeve. But I feel like the other ones had been there for a lot longer. So it was just kind of like where the whole titles and the whole how long War College was kind of confused me. But again, unimportant. But it was just a question that I was like, wait, huh? So for the story, I loved it. It was great. So fun to watch. And as I had mentioned when I was kind of giving a brief kind of summary, is that it gave me this sense of a modern day telling of Romeo and Juliet, with Maeve being Juliet and Saxon being Romeo. And that's definitely one of the things that can be said about Shakespeare's plays, is that there are a lot of series, movies that are based off Shakespeare plays. And after I was kind of like writing this, it came to me that Taming of the Heiress and say probably the arrangement too are similar to Taming of the Shrew. So you could kind of see the similarities, and I just didn't notice it until after I was like writing this, and I was like, wait, I totally should have realized that, and I could have talked about that a little bit more. And I've slowly kind of been like noticing that a bit more with some of these series, is that you can compare them to like some other shows or movies and see the similarity. Like there was one that I have that I will be doing later, which I kind of compared to another movie that I love. I don't want to give it too much away, but so okay, I'll give you this one. One of the new series that's on Drama Pops that I've been seeing clips of so far, which is Until Divorce Do We Part, I think it is. The clips that I have seen so far, I haven't watched the series yet, but I want to. But the clips that I've seen so far, it's kind of giving me like Sweet Home Alabama vibes, and I was like, ooh, this is fun. And I'm like, okay, so we can kind of give this whole like, oh, it's comparing it to something else to give it this background and show, oh, well, it's good. And that's what makes the series even better, is because it's still got the same vibe. And I know I may not be making sense right now, but that's kind of where my brain is going, which is why I went into this with going like, oh my God, this is like a modern day Romeo and Juliet. And I adore Shakespeare. I love his works, his plays. I especially love reading them in their true form. I know not everyone loves reading Shakespeare as it is, and sometimes it's hard to read it as it is, but I love Shakespeare as it is. Unfortunately, I haven't read all of Shakespeare's plays. I still want to. I know there are some that aren't so good, or they're harder to read. A lot of them are tragedies. There are a few comedies in there, but I love Shakespeare. And that is definitely one thing that I've since learned, is that there is a lot of media, movies, and shows out there that are based off his plays. This being one, as I said. It's like how I explained it was, you may not realize it at first, the whole being based off Romeo and Juliet, because they don't die at the end. But I found it to be that the added element of the mate bond, how if the mate dies, the other one goes mad, goes crazy, and basically ends up dying. Or if it gets broken, they end up dying. So I think that kind of gives it that sense of, well, Romeo and Juliet would die at the end, just in a different way. So how I read it was the mate bond being that you die, I die, helps connect it to Romeo and Juliet. How it goes is Romeo sees Juliet is dead and can't live without her, so he kills himself, not knowing that she wasn't truly dead. When she wakes up to find him dead, she can't live without him and ends her life, so they can be together in death. How the mate bond in this series go is, if the mate dies, the living mate will go feral and driven into madness. The mate cannot survive without its other half. Therefore, you cannot live without them. Thankfully, this series doesn't end in tragedy like the play does, but it is fun to see and figure out how all the different parallels to the play are in there. And the other thing when it came to this series is, it wasn't just a wolf series, but a series that shows that fighting for truth and justice isn't wrong, that not everyone is what they seem. Sometimes the people you trust most can betray you. Sometimes the people you didn't know can surprise you. And strength is doing the right thing. And that is what Maeve ends up realizing, is that for her, true strength was realizing that her father was bad and that she needed to bring him down. And that was something that her mother ended up giving her a message to, is that she needed to stop him before he became more powerful. And she showed him how to do that. The same with, as I said, the mate bond between Saxon and Maeve helped break the spell between Maeve and Dominion that her father had put on her. It's because the king thought that nothing could break that spell, not realizing that Maeve Maeve had been mated to or bonded to Saxon. And because that bond was so powerful, and because they couldn't live without each other, without one of them dying or going feral, it helped stop any witchcraft that could separate them. So her love for him is what helped break her of the spell, and his love for her helped break that, because it showed that true mates can save each other. And I loved how they really kind of showed that. It wasn't just simply, as one would say, a true love's kiss, as the fairy tales do, but it was more him biting the bond, the mate bond that they had created a couple days before, that really helped break the spell. So there were definitely like little things in there that really were fun to watch and see, and it made the story better. And after kind of, again, realizing that it's very similar to like a modern day Romeo and Juliet, it made the story that much better for me and made me enjoy it a lot more. So it was definitely a highlight for me. I loved it. I highly recommend it. For the rating, I gave it a 7.8, and I kind of hate myself for this, but when I was doing it, I had my reasons, but I'm still like going, no, this should definitely be higher, because it was just so good. I loved it. And again, I hate myself for giving this rating, but I still recommend it. I still love it. It was such a great story. It's fantastic. I love the two actors. They were phenomenal. Their chemistry was great. It really gave you that like enemies to lovers, and it was definitely, I needed to see more. I would love a sequel. I don't think there really is a need for one, because it ended very well, but at the same time, I'm like, I want more. Give me more. Please give me more. But again, I would love to hear your thoughts on the series. Did you have any favorite parts? Did you see the similarities to Romeo and Juliet that I did? I could probably talk so much about this one, and I know like some of the little tangents I've gone off on, but this one was fun, and I enjoyed so much kind of breaking down how it was similar to Romeo and Juliet. And I'm like, I could probably do more, but I didn't want to make this too long. So this has been Bound to the Rebel Wolf on ReelShort, and I am your host, Megan. This has been my vertical obsession, and until next time.